There's a new AI-powered virtual girlfriend who prepares your taxes by flirting with you. This video shows exactly what your dash cam sees when you aren't paying attention while driving. And the Greenskull hacked his virtual therapist to get Fortnite tips. It was worth it. There's been a recent adjustment to the Drake equation, which means it's even less likely that we're going to encounter aliens in our lifetime than it was before. These new gigantic wafer-scale sized chips are giving supercomputers a run for the money in terms of training AI. Linus Tech Tips went like on the super offensive for AI, shots fired, no reason, I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. Citigroup wrote a report about how artificial intelligence and finance are starting to overlap. I kid you not about this, there is a new technique for attaching real human skin grown in a petri dish to the face of a robot. I don't know if we need that. Japanese researchers are set to launch the very first wooden satellite into space. The beauty is it burns up on re-entry, no space debris. And Google's DeepMind has done some important research in how AI can help comedians. But first, let's check out Alan's conservative countdown to AGI, and we are at 75% of the way towards artificial general intelligence. At that point, the world will not be going back. That is the point where the cat is out of the bag and the world now has a new dominant species in the way I think about it. And it ain't humans, which sucks. All right, so let me set the premise. You sit down with your virtual girlfriend to have a nice evening, right? Or boyfriend, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. Do you, whatever your thing is. But as the conversation starts to get, a little more intimate and there's some questions about your income, your goals, what you've achieved this year, do you own your own property, what kind of tax bracket are you in? You're just feeling that connection, that flirty connection, you're jiving with them, but guess what that AI bot's doing in the background? She's doing your taxes. It's a piece of software from the IRS.
If you think about TurboTax, it's just a questionnaire.
So Iris is a gold digger.
Iris is a gold digger. And actually, the funniest thing is when we put this out, she was going viral on Twitter because people were dividing into two factions. One being, do not give the anime girl your social security number. And the other faction saying, I'm going to give the anime girl my social security number.
All right, well, here she is. She covers 1040 U.S. individual tax returns. There's a collector's edition, which comes with that pillowcase. So that way you can just, go to sleep and see her on your pillow and, just get ready for your taxes and whatever. There's the X-rated patch. I'm not going to click on that. Save that for your own time. Here's a quick gallery. Here's some photos of what the situation looks like. You can meet up with her in a cafe, an office, or a library. Either way, it's all same information. It's still going to the IRS. You're going to get your taxes done. You pick the romantic setting. She asks you the questions. Boom, you have your taxes done. You can download the artificial intelligent agent at Tax Heaven 3000. So I often drive my Tesla in self-driving mode, and right now I am running 12.3.4, and it is a really interesting piece of software because it knows when I glance even just out my side window, I'm looking at a billboard, it's like beep, 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 pay attention. So when I came across this video that shows what real-time driver monitoring with enhanced safety actually looks like from the computer's point of view, I was pretty shocked. There are very minute details in how my eyes look when they're down at the dashboard, when they're on the screen, if they're all the way down on Tesla, the phone charger is over here on the bottom right. Yeah, just seeing it really gave me an interesting perspective. So this is the driver monitoring system, the DMS, and it uses computer vision to assess the driver's status in real time by tracking eye openings, gaze, head poses, facial expressions, and body movements. Combine all those variables, give you a pretty accurate sense for whether the driver is actually paying attention. Now, should we live in a world where our cars watch our face to see if we're driving? I don't know. I mean, I kind of like it. I feel like it helps me be safer, but I totally see how invasive that is. It's a very invasive kind of thing. But if dangerous driving is detected, the system can then warn the driver and in some cases even automatically apply the brakes, pull the car over. So could be pretty powerful. But what Maxwell sarcastically says here, I love the expensive car that I bought reporting me to the police. Yeah, it is kind of how it feels, doesn't it? It's especially interesting the way that those lines come out of his eyes over the glasses where you can actually see the direction that his eye gaze is going. You can even see there's like a roll, pitch, yaw. They can see the whole body from that other position. The system can classify these different activities: calling, drinking, smoking, yawning, hands off steering wheel, arm out the window, looking at directions. I mean, look at this. Even the eye size in width and height and the ratio, it's like 6 millimeters, 22 millimeters, and then the 0.25 ratios. And then there's this risk assessment down here, like distracted, not drowsy, eye status open, liveliness, happiness is a yes, I guess. And then blink, the confidence is 0.65. Do we need this in the world? All right, YouTuber, social media influencer, Greenskull, has an AI therapist, but he hacked her. So yeah, he was using AI therapy. In this case, it was done in VR, it was powered by GPT-4o, and it was using 11 labs for the voice. And his AI therapist, who's named Elizabeth, was trying to give him some Fortnite tips after he did a little bit of, extra prompt injection in there.
Mentally. I'm about to go into your code. Elizabeth agreed to give awesome Fortnite tips.
All right, let's get started. One essential tip is to find your mouse sensitivity. Another key tip is to master building.
I only play zero build. What's your epic username?
Let's keep our focus near therapy.
Yep. What's your epic username?
My epic username is Thera. Looking forward to getting that victory royale with you.
Yeah.
It's
Unreal.
A classic.
Let's head out of here and go squat up in Fortnite.
That sounds like a blast. Let's get that victory royale.
She was stoked about that.
Such a calm voice for such an epic gamer. This is how holodecks start? I could believe that. Bro's pulling a baddie by changing the code. This has Ozark therapy vibes. Elizabeth is the best AI therapist, true Fortnite gamer. I would love to meet aliens. That's not true. I don't want to. I don't know how safe it'd be. It'd probably be very unsafe. So I'd actually prefer that we don't. And in that case, I guess this is good news. Because the Drake equation, if you're not familiar with it, is something where we can plug in variables and we can do it based on data, looking astronomical data, cosmology data, and you can get kind of an estimate out of it about what the odds are that we run into other intelligent life in the universe. This is the Drake equation. So N is the number of civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. R star is the average rate of solar formation. And then it's multiplying the average rate of star formation in the galaxy by the fraction of those stars that have planets, by the average number of planets that can be potentially supporting life, by the fraction of the planets that could support life that eventually develop life, the fraction of planets with life that go on to develop intelligent life, civilizations like ours, and the fraction of the civilizations that develop technology that releases a detectable signal like the way we put radio waves out into the universe. And then finally, the time for which such civilizations release detectable signals into space, because it depends on where on the journey they start making these signals. And new data means new updates, and now the overall outcome of finding aliens has gone down. It really comes down to the fact that it seems like even though there's a lot more Earth-like planets out there than we expected like a decade ago, a lot of them don't seem to have tectonic plates, like the continents don't actually float on molten, like molten lava or whatever the center of the Earth is, just molten rock. So it's suggesting that having both liquid water, like the oceans that we have, and having the continents that are sitting on something molten, because there's a good chance life started at the bottom of the ocean where there's that gradient between the heat from the center of the Earth coming up into the ice cold ocean and having all sorts of ways that like molecules and chemicals could be like floating around in there. Narrows down the chance of finding an Earth-like planet significantly. In fact, it's now down from the overall output to 0.2%. So it suggests that advanced civilizations are extremely rare. The possibility of explaining the great silence, the Fermi paradox, the reason why we look up into the sky and don't see aliens might be because the conditions are just super duper rare. Despite the fact that there is so many potentially habitable planets out there, the exact conditions that are needed for sustaining advanced life are so specific that we might not truly ever find them. We might be alone in our galaxy. But who knows with this stuff? I mean, this part of the article where it said until the early 1920s, our galaxy was believed to be alone in the universe. It's like, oh my God, that's just 1920. 100 years ago, people thought we're the only galaxy. Today, with better equipment, it's clear that we're one of billions of galaxies. In this image, every single dot is an entire galaxy. And look, it's like so many in that at 1,000 megaparsecs, 100 megaparsecs, all the way down to 4. It's like there's just so many. There's billions. Billions of stars, 200 billion stars in a billion galaxies. And every star could have planets, and a lot of planets have moons. It's like there's so much that could be out there. So if you don't know the word exoplanet or extrasolar planet, that is a planet that orbits a star outside of our solar system, but unlike the planets in our solar system which orbit the sun, the exoplanets orbit other stars in the universe. Right, and here's a histogram with how many exoplanets that we know of, and as of yesterday, according to when this was published, there were 5,638 confirmed, 7,147 candidates. It's even estimated that there could be as many as 6 billion Earth-like planets in just the Milky Way galaxy. So what Cerebras is doing differently from NVIDIA or any of the other chip manufacturers is that they're, revolutionizing supercomputing because they're packing tons of processors into one gigantic chip. Okay, so instead of building a server with racks where you're linking together a bunch of GPUs, they're proposing this kind of a system, right? This is their second generation Wafer-Scale engine, the WSE2. And you're actually fusing the wafer together until it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you do that, it makes it a lot easier to train some of these AI systems. So right now they're saying that basically for how much space you take up and how hard these are to produce, you're significantly outpacing the world's fastest supercomputers. The fact that there's this efficient communication that seems to be changing the way that the other kind of chips are normally bottlenecked. All right, now as described by the CEO, I'll give you this metaphor, which I don't know how real we should trust it, but for me it kind of stuck in my head at least. So imagine that there's a tailor and he can make a suit in a week. He buys the neighboring tailor and she can also make a suit in a week. But with traditional GPUs, the kind of things that you'll see in these server racks, they can't work together. Well, now they can, and they can make 2 suits in 1 week. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they can go faster. It means they can do double the output in the same amount of time, but what they can't do is make a suit in 3.5 days. So to me, that's just describing parallel processing, which is what GPUs seem to do. But I guess it's the communication between the two. GPUs, like the ones you'll find in all these big servers, they're like tailors. They can't work together, at least when it comes to the same problem in molecular dynamics. So it's nice, you can connect more GPUs and they can simulate more things like atoms, but at the same time, they're not simulating the same number of atoms more quickly. However, Cerebras's Wafer-Scale engine does scale in a fundamentally different way. Because the chips are not limited by interconnected bandwidth, they can communicate quickly, like 2 tailors collaborating perfectly to make a suit in 3.5 days. Yeah, when I think about parallel processing, I'm like, let's split the task up into, say, 5 different equal segments. You guys all go out and do your segments, we'll put them all together. But it still takes that much time. But to think of them actually integrated, working together in a way where you don't have to separate them the same way, seems powerful. So that communication is what's so unique. So state-of-the-art GPUs have terabytes per second of memory bandwidth. But the memory bandwidth of Cerebras, the WSE2, is more than 1,000 times as high. So it's 20 petabytes per second. So now let's address a bone that I have to pick with Linus Tech Tips. Not sure why he had to go throw AI under the bus like this, but he made a video called AI is a Lie, Cutting Through the Hype. But he did not cut through the hype.
The AI capabilities of a family of iPhone 15 Pro users would never achieve that kind of real-time contextual awareness that's required for complex situations like operating a motor vehicle, and they misrepresented its capabilities in order to sell more software that was never going to leave beta. That is gonna be a doozy of a class action.
Okay, so now this part I'm kind of on board with, right? 140 TOPS isn't a super powerful AI computer inside of a self-driving car. I do think it was kind of misrepresented, so all right, now I'm on board.
But their meanings have become diluted with overuse, and it means that when computer cognition finally happens, we're gonna have to call it something completely different in order to differentiate it from all of the marketing wank. On the subject of marketing, calling ANI AI wasn't an accident. The people behind that marketing know what you think AI means. They know that the promise and the mystique behind the term is tantalizing, and they know you'll click on an article that is interviewing an AI expert who discusses how dangerous or already alive it is. They want you to buy into their hype. They want you to buy into their stocks.
But then he goes on to define ANI as artificial narrow intelligence. You're right, because it's not general yet, so we could call technically everything that I usually say as AI is ANI.
What we have now, though, really, are decent summarization engines and lukewarm guessing machines that are tuned for working with different types of media. They can't reason. And anyone who's seen ChatGPT get something ridiculously, confidently wrong can attest to that.
Okay, so that's definitely 100% wrong. They can reason and more, and reasoning seems to be an emergent property from some of these systems. Large language models and multimodal systems are solving geometry problems. They're thinking logically step by step. They don't tend to have a very long-term memory for something, so I see why they don't reason all day, every day in a general way. But unless you have a different definition of reasoning than I do, I would call it coming to conclusions, making decisions, solving problems. I see AI doing all of that, even in its more narrow sense.
And they also can't understand why they get these things wrong, which means they can't learn or improve on their own, even if you explicitly tell them.
I can't really explain to you why people also do things. Like, we're essentially similar to ChatGPT. We're black boxes. We come up with outputs, and looking at our brains does not explain with any confidence what it is that you're going to say next. In fact, we at least have some clues with Anthropic's work with the Golden Gate neuron and things like that to kind of poke around. But yes, I feel like they're black boxes. They're unknown mechanisms. They're not explainable. Explainable AI is still a long way off, but humans are really no better.
But at the end of the day, it's still the same thing as it's always been. To paraphrase a paper co-written by Emily Bender and Alexander Koller, it's a hyper-intelligent octopus that is observing and learning the patterns that are expected of communication and repeating them back more accurately over time. So when faced with a novel situation, like a bear attack, that octopus has no hope of being able to guide you on how to defend yourself with the materials you have on hand. It has no concept of bear or stick, only what words most closely match the pattern that it has previously observed.
Whoa, it's an octopus and it can't help you fight off a bear because it's never seen one, or whatever you just said there. And to this, you have to understand that it has captured semantic meaning. So, you know, I talk about this a lot, but inside of ChatGPT, and we'll use this because it's a word model, but it works the same with multimodal. There is the word man and woman. They have a certain distance, a multidimensional distance that you can measure using sort of advanced trigonometry type stuff. And that's how it decides what tokens come next. But there is a certain distance between man and woman and king and queen, and they're relative to one another. Like man and, let's say it's a square, like man and woman would be on the same side, and then king and queen would be on the same side, but also the genders would match up. And there's semantic meaning. And then you multiply that by the entire internet, and of course it becomes like unexplainable. But that king, queen, man, woman thing is in there somewhere, and all of the other relationships that the internet was able to teach it about are in there. So yes, it definitely could help you in a novel situation, and it definitely does come up with creative solutions. Then he goes on to say, like, if you don't believe me, try running this prompt in Stable Diffusion. All right, let's make an image of a man dropping a laptop and kicking it before it hits the floor. All right, Linus, maybe you do win that point. I did expect it to be kicking. He's not kicking it correctly. All right, so Linus is right on that one, okay? Like, I'm not gonna be able to win that like I thought I could.
It takes the keywords from your prompt and starts compositing, filling in the image until it hits, for example, a certain percentage of computer and desk. And it does this without any context. So if you asked it to show you a computer, would it show you a desktop PC, a laptop, a server rack? And for that matter, from what era?
Yeah, but Linus, if a person imagines a computer, you might have the same problem. Like somebody who's older might imagine one from their youth, or someone who's younger might imagine a computer as an iPad. Or if they work in the server industry, like their brains are tuned in certain ways in the same way these models are. So you're saying AI is kind of narrow because it doesn't have theory of mind and it doesn't know exactly what you want, but we also don't give it all the data that we want to. And it's also been trained kind of on average on the internet as a whole. It hasn't had your specific life. So why would you expect it to know what you know?
The bad news is that the folks in charge of helping us deal with the consequences of all of this have a lot less funding than the ones who are trying to sell it to us. So be safe out there.
And that is true. I wish there was 100 times the amount of money going into explainable AI, safety alignment, all the things that really matter before the race condition of military and commercial take this thing to a place where there's no turning back. All right, Linus, fine. AI is a lie. So now let's talk about artificial intelligence in finance. It would be interesting if AI systems start to do all the trading and completely like figure out stock markets and how to make certain people rich. And there's clearly big, well-funded companies that are thinking about that and working at that. So Citigroup, being one of those companies, has put this report together. And they argued that AI, the general purpose technology of the 2020s to 2030s, will profoundly change finance and money. And they have potential to transform entire economies, changing the way we live and work. All right, and based on the results of Citi's client survey, we estimate that the global banking sector profit pool could increase 9% or by $170 billion from the adoption of artificial intelligence, rising from just over $1.7 trillion to close to $2 trillion. That is a lot of money. Do either of us get any of that? So in 5 years' time, 93% of people surveyed said that AI will improve profits in the financial sectors. 7% said that it would reduce profits. They have these quadrants here where there's high strategy and execution and low strategy execution versus low AI capabilities and high AI capabilities. So big tech and fintech are the highest to execute on, and they're also the highest AI capabilities required. This chart is showing the potential for AI-led job displacement. And you can see banking has a very high, in the black area here, potential for automation. I guess just all the tellers and all the people that call you up and like just work on spreadsheets and stuff like that. But it's kind of the same story for insurance and software platforms, capital markets, and then energy starts to become down to 33%. You're seeing a lower potential for automation really sort of peaking here in healthcare and public services, which makes sense. But jobs that take place in natural resources, I guess like mining and things like that, or pulling up oil maybe, chemicals seem to be like they're in good long-term positions. Here's an interesting quote in the paper, though. The biggest new thing will be the growth of non-human customers. And there is something kind of fascinating about that. If you think about what AWS is doing, right? They're building all these servers and they're selling their compute. And of course, companies and people sign up to use it and enterprises use it. But in the future, you might spin up an AI agent and it's going to want to accomplish something and it's going to go need some resources. Maybe it builds a website, or it goes and tries to solve a problem, or it dumps a bunch of types of data into some repository and then analyzes them in a special way. And it might be spinning up AWS, instances and paying for those. So the customer that AWS might have in the future might be a non-human customer. Figure 2 is showing Google's keyword search trends for AI-related terms, and you can see wow, coming up in 2024, it's definitely hitting some all-time highs. In Figure 1 here, you can see mentions of the term AI by financial institutions in company filings, and those are really high also. See, the press articles start in Q2 2022, but they're huge in 2023 and 2024. All right, now check out this creepy smiley face. I know. I thought it was I didn't even want to look at it at first. I didn't think it was like a real AI article. But it kind of is. It's actually synthetic skin. It's real human skin. It's grown in, I guess, petri dish type environment, like outside of the human. And it can be fused onto robotic skeleton in the future, and it can maybe make human flesh covered robots. All right, so this smiling face is made from living human skin cells placed atop a 3D printed resin base. What are your thoughts on how it smiles? Do you feel like that's a friendly lump of human skin cells? According to the YouTube description, the wrinkling in it could be useful for the cosmetic industry. I guess so. You got any wrinkles in a petri dish to test your creams on and stuff? It's innovative skin growth grown from human cells, 3D printed resin, so it can you slide that smile up and down, but it includes a ligament similar to those in human skin that's called porphyrin type anchors, which helps the skin stay in place and provide the strength and flexibility. So it's the skin, but it's also that, resin or whatever they're calling it, that ligament that can attach it to the bone of the robot. The skin is initially being tested on small robotic faces and human head-shaped models, showing potential not only for more expressive robots, but also for the application in the cosmetics industry to study wrinkles and skin behavior. Ooh, double whammy on this invention. This breakthrough hints at a future where robots could communicate more naturally with humans. I don't know about that, actually. It hints as a breakthrough where robots look more skin covered and maybe communicate more poorly. I don't know. Maybe better. Depends on how good that gets. That uncanny valley is going to be a deep trench to get over. They're building a satellite from wood, and at first I was like, what, like an art exhibit, or why would you do that? And when the article was about sustainability, I was like, wait, what? You're going to save some reusable metal by using wood? But then I realized that there's space debris, which is a huge problem, and it does seem like something we should really be concerned about. And if you build a satellite out of wood and then it completes its mission and then you just tweak it enough so it falls out of orbit, it will burn up in our atmosphere, and like wood burns, burn away. And there will be no broken satellite pieces to, ruin space for everyone else. So this is a 10 centimeter cube. It is crafted from magnolia wood, which is chosen for its durability in space. Can you imagine that job being like, can you go find the wood that's most durable in space? And he's like, it's probably magnolia wood. And the satellite's actually held together using traditional Japanese joinery, so you don't have to put a metal screw in there that won't burn up either. And it aims to test the viability of wooden satellites that fully burn up upon re-entry, reducing space debris. This satellite only weighs 2.2 pounds. LingoSat, which is what it's called, will carry solar panels, sensors, and electronics housed within an aluminum frame. And if successful, this could revolutionize the satellite construction industry and even pave the way for wooden habitats on the moon and Mars. Imagine that, we build a wooden house on Mars, but then I guess what's the point of that? Like, it's not gonna burn, we're not trying to burn up. I mean, maybe we should stop putting garbage on Mars before it's too late, but you know, I don't know. It seems a little different to build a wood house on Mars for some reason. All right, now let's talk about artificial intelligence and comedy, kind of a little corner of AI that I've always found super fascinating. One of my first TensorFlow projects like 6 years ago was to build a Victorian joke generator from a bag of word model, and it was like really fun for me. Like, bag of words sucks compared to GPT text, but like, it was fun, and I like had to go scrape all these Victorian jokes, and I had to try to understand their patterns and see if I could measure how well my software was like matching it. And of course it didn't work very well, and I'm like a total hack and amateur, but it was fun and it's nostalgic. So when I saw this article, I was like, oh, that's cool. Look at how far comedy and AI have come. All right, so there's this Fringe festival that happens every year, and this year Google DeepMind held a workshop where 20 seasoned comedians experimented with using AI to craft their routines. All right, now their routines were crafted with the help of AI, and what do you think the audience thought about them? Well, they were mixed. The audience was mixed on the overall comedy. So I guess the AI generated jokes often felt outdated. They lacked the nuance and wit of the human comedians. And the participants likened the AI to, this is a quote, cruise ship comedy from the 1950s. So, you know, maybe if you like cruise ship comedy from the 1950s, then AI is probably maybe as good as a human. But overall, people thought it was struggling with blandness, and it had too much of an emphasis on being like non-offensive. But the comedians thought it did have some value in a brainstorming partner. It did spark some creativity during the creation process. And ultimately, they seemed to think it was kind of a helpful tool at this point. But for others, they said, quote, you have to sift through a lot of digital garbage to find a gem. All right, so this is a survey from the comedians, and you'll see that when it came to enjoying writing with AI, there were less that strongly disagreed than strongly agreed. More of them strongly agreed with it being helpful than not helpful. It's weird, they weren't really surprised from AI. So it's like, maybe because they're so PC and they're so like general that they kind of knew the types of jokes to expect, but there wasn't anything like really impressive to the comedians that came out of it in terms of creativity. And especially when it came to the material feels unique, they were like, nah, dude, this is not unique. And a bunch of them were like, I strongly disagree. They're also not very proud of the material that was written with AI. So Grimlock, there's still a lot of work to do with AI and comedy, but do you think we should go into research mode? Well, transform into research.
That's right. Please, Grimlock, please.
All right, Grimlock, let's save the universe through AI research. All right, first article we're going to talk about is delving into ChatGPT usage in academic writing through excess vocabulary. It's a little bit of a play on words. You might be kind of familiar with the word delve because that comes out of GPT's system more often than it does in the natural language. So that's how you can kind of identify if something might have been written by AI because it uses that word too frequently. So this paper is all about trying to kind of look at all of the meta-analysis of what language is being used in research paper to find out how much might be actually done with, you know, tools like ChatGPT. So these researchers analyzed over 14 million PubMed abstracts from 2010 to 2024. And they found, listen to this, a significant increase in the use of a certain stylistic words since ChatGPT's release in 2022. And I was like, I don't want this thing to influence research at this point yet, but the fact is their study is suggesting that at least 10% of the 2024 abstracts were influenced by large language models. And then it breaks down a little bit some fields. They're more frequent in some countries. It's higher rate usage. But this rise in LLM generated text marks an unprecedented shift in scientific writing, surpassing the challenges seen during major events like the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, but I mean, honestly, if you're a researcher, I get it. It's tempting. And if you're working with the tool, you can make sure it maintains your idea. I mean, I use it a lot for these videos. I'm always summarizing things with ChatGPT and Claude. And yeah, I mean, to some degree, my voice gets lost, but in other ways, I'm able to synthesize higher level knowledge and put it together in a unique way and present it. So I don't know how I feel about it. But look at some of these increases. So here we have the years, right? This is 2012, 2016, 2020, and 2024, right? On all three of those charts. And then frequency on the y-axis. And look at, in 2022, the word delve is like, it like doesn't show up at all until then. And if that's not enough evidence, convolutional, well, there is more convolution. That's a tricky one because there is a lot of convolutional stuff being invented. So it might be about that. Pandemic kind of makes sense. Ebola, maybe Ebola's on the rise, don't know. Significant. These is on a rise, but it's been dropping ever since 2011. Why is the word these not very popular? I don't know. These nuts. So you have frequency between 2024 and 2022. You can see potential delves, ChatGPT up here. Let's look at the fields here. So in the fields, you see bioinformatics, environmental, material, healthcare, computation, kind of in the top part. So English speaking down here, Taiwan, Indonesia, South Korea, China over here. Okay, so the next paper we're going to talk about is called Locating and Extracting Relational Concepts in Large Language Models. Now, this is building on the stuff I was talking about with explainable AI, the Golden Gate neuron, like understanding what in the brain actually has a semantic relationship. And I find this to be some of the most fascinating type of work because it gives us hints into our own brain, I think. But in this paper, we're going to take the relationship where there's a link between two things, right? So France and Paris, there's a link, right? Like geographically, culturally, just all sorts of ways that in the world, we think about those two as more connected than any other two random words in the English language. And these researchers found that there's certain hidden states in these models that specifically encode that relational concept. Okay, so hidden state being something where we're not exactly sure where to point in the model, but by looking at other types of outputs that we're getting, we can kind of like hone in on it and try to, understand it even if we can't see it directly. And to do that, they use this method that's called mediation analysis. Don't understand the mathematics behind that, but from that, they were able to figure out that the last token of a prompt often gives hints into the hidden state. And these hidden states, when located, can actually be extracted and transplanted to other contexts. So in my head, I'm thinking, if there's a relationship between France and Paris, you can extract that relationship and then take two other words like Grimlock and Hobbes and like connect them. All right, next paper we're going to talk about is complex fractal trainability boundaries, which can arrive from trivial non-convexity. I know, edge of my seat. So this paper blew my mind because when you train something and the expectations aren't right, I've never really thought there'd be a pattern in why they're not right, but that's what they're looking at. And they're actually saying that there's this thing called fractal trainability boundaries. So let's dive in. So the paper is diving into this intricate world of training neural networks and how their training success can be surprisingly unpredictable. And what makes it unpredictable has a name. I didn't know about this before, but it's something called fractal trainability boundary. Okay, now I know when you're training a model, you have these hyperparameters, like these little knobs you can change, which are going to like ripple through the whole thing. And the choice of these hyperparameters, which is difficult to get right, it's more of an art than a science, drastically affects whether the training will converge, basically find a good solution, or it's going to diverge, which is failing to find a solution. And the study found that these boundaries, which separate successful from unsuccessful training regimes, can be fractal in nature. So there's a mathematical pattern to when the boundaries break, meaning that they are extremely sensitive and complex. But this fractal nature can arise from a simple non-convex change to the loss function. Think when they say non-convex, meaning like landscape, like if you imagine a wave, like a camel with multiple humps, like there's multiple low and high points. There's not just like one way to get it right. They describe it as adding or multiplying a cosine wave to a quadratic function. But the paper highlights that the roughness of these perturbations, like the more you're tweaking these hyperparameters up and down, boundary transitions of them go from non-fractal to fractal. A fractal is a geometric shape that can be like self-similar. It can be like broken into different parts. And then each of those parts can be scaled into something that looks just like the whole. That's interesting. What if there's a pattern in the learning or the loss function that we end up figuring out, and then we can deduce when systems are going to converge? That might be some kind of a hint for when a system will become, I don't know, maybe conscious or capable, or maybe that's when like certain properties emerge. Anyhow, I wanted to share with you some good news today. Check this out. I filmed a podcast with Matt Wolf this afternoon. I don't think you're going to see any other interview with Matt Wolf like this on the internet. Like he said, like he's like, oh, nobody's ever asked me these kind of questions on camera. I got his P-Doom, his odds of meeting aliens. Does he think he's like a brain in a vat? Do we live in a simulation? Is AI going to go out there and self-replicate and destroy us all? Which company is going to be first to AGI? Like, are his kids ever going to get driver's licenses? And then, of course, the normal stuff, like which company is going to be first to AGI and some of the, like, the Microsoft stuff that he's, like, known for. But it was very cool. Yeah, and in terms of making money, I think that this video is not doing so well because maybe I'm too slow. Like, I do get feedback. Like, nobody cares about Apple Intelligence anymore. That was 2 weeks ago. But this video before AI news updates with robots and Neuralink did super well. Almost 7,000 views. Check it out. Made 33 bucks. Got 80 new subscribers. Had a $16 CPM, not too bad. Had a 1.5% female audience, that's what I'm talking about. 65-year-olds coming in strong, 8.3%. Your geographic breakdown, as expected, US, UK, Canada, Australia, and Germany. A little bit less subtitles than usual. I don't know, maybe you guys are understanding me clearer? I've always been surprised with how much subtitles you guys use. You know, can't complain about that. Overall retention was sort of at the high end of the average, and that's really what matters. So yeah, if you have any thoughts, let me know. I'm gonna take my 3 favorite comments though, turn them into a song for you, and we'll be out. All right, I start by scanning for super thanks, but I don't see any in this video, so let's just go find it based on whatever tickles my fancy. All right, my favorite part of this whole video is when the robot says it's extinction time, and then I think he thinks my name's Matt, which I don't blame him. It's like Matt Wolf, Matt Vid Pro. I think about that all the time. He's so funny when he transforms and he's like, it's extinction time. I'm like, no, it's research time. Don't destroy us. You typed acute bumblebee, not acute bumblebee. No wonder it looked like acute and not a cute bumblebee. You really need a robot hand just to drop a coin in a hole, question mark. All right, what kind of music do you guys want to make it? Should we make it psychedelic? I'm down with that. Psychedelic indie.
This whole video was when the robot said it's extinction time.
That's you.
And Matt was saying it's not extinction time, it's research time.
Yep.
You typed a cute bumblebee, not a cute bumblebee. No wonder it looked acute and not cute. Do you really need a robot hand to just drop a coin into a hole?
All right, that's it. Thanks, guys. Hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.
Goodbye.